Khaled was a young man from a small Egyptian village. His life was simple. It was predictable. Every day felt the same as the one before it. He would wake up, work, and sleep. The sun would rise and set, painting the sky with colors that no longer excited him. He watched his friends get married and settle down. They seemed happy with their quiet lives. They found comfort in the familiar rhythm of the village. But for Khaled, this rhythm was a cage. He felt a deep boredom that settled in his bones, making him restless and eager for something, anything, different. He wanted to break free from the chains of his ordinary existence. His imagination was his only escape from this monotonous reality. He often dreamed of adventures in faraway lands. He read stories about heroes who fought monsters and discovered hidden treasures. These tales were more real to him than his own life. He longed for a challenge, a mystery to solve, a real danger to face. His grandfather used to tell him stories about a cursed crypt just outside the village, a place called Forik. The villagers whispered about it, their voices filled with fear. They said no one who entered ever returned. Instead of being scared, Khaled felt a spark of curiosity. This was the kind of mystery he had been waiting for. The desire for something new grew stronger each day. It was a hunger that could not be satisfied by the simple meals his family shared. He felt like a spectator in his own life, just watching the days pass without any real meaning. He wanted to feel his heart pound with excitement, not just from working in the fields. The stories of the Forik crypt were a siren's call. They promised an escape, a journey into the unknown. Khaled knew he had to find out if the legends were true. He decided that a life lived in fear was not a life at all. He would rather face the unknown than drown in the sea of his predictable routine. This decision was a turning point for him. It was a silent promise he made to himself. He would not let his life be a story written by someone else. He would be the author of his own destiny, even if it led him into darkness. The village, with its familiar faces and dusty roads, suddenly felt like a distant memory, even though he had not yet left. His mind was already on the path to the Forik crypt. He was ready to trade his boring, safe life for a chance at a real adventure, no matter the cost. He felt a mix of fear and exhilaration, a feeling he had never experienced before. One moonless night, Khaled gathered his courage. He left his quiet home and walked towards the edge of the village. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and old secrets. He found the entrance to the Forik crypt hidden among ancient gnarled trees. It was a dark opening in the ground, like a mouth waiting to swallow him whole. The villagers' warnings echoed in his mind, but his thirst for adventure was stronger than his fear. He lit a torch, its flame dancing nervously, and took his first step down into the darkness. The stone steps were cold and slippery, leading him deeper and deeper underground. The tunnel was long and winding. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, telling a story he could not understand. He felt a strange energy in the air, a feeling that he was crossing a barrier between worlds. After what felt like hours of walking, he reached a large chamber. In the center stood a strange, shimmering gate. It was not made of wood or metal, but of swirling light. It hummed with a low, powerful sound that seemed to pull him closer. He knew this was the heart of the crypt's mystery. This was the point of no return. His heart was beating like a drum against his ribs. He hesitated for only a moment. He thought of his village, of the predictable life he was leaving behind. Then he thought of the endless empty days that awaited him if he turned back. With a deep breath, he stepped through the portal. The world dissolved into a blinding flash of light and a roaring sound. He felt like he was being torn apart and put back together again. When he could finally see, he was no longer in the dark crypt. He was standing in a bustling city under a strange, unfamiliar sky. The buildings were tall and oddly shaped, and the people wore clothes he had never seen before. He had arrived in Zikola land. The air was clean and the city was vibrant, but something felt wrong. The people moved with a purpose that seemed almost robotic. There was no laughter, no idle chatter. Everyone seemed focused, their faces serious and intense. Khaled was an outsider, a complete stranger in this bizarre new world. The initial thrill of his adventure was quickly replaced by a sense of confusion and isolation. He had found the something different he was looking for, but he was not prepared for how alien and unsettling it would be. He had left his world behind for a place that operated on rules he did not yet understand. As Khaled tried to make sense of his new surroundings, he quickly discovered the fundamental rule of Zikola land. This world did not use money. There were no coins, no paper bills. Instead, the currency was something far more personal and precious: intelligence. Every citizen of Zikola was born with a certain number of mental units. These units were used to pay for everything: a loaf of bread, a place to sleep, a piece of clothing. Each item had a price measured in intelligence. To buy something, a person would place their hand on a device, and the cost would be deducted directly from their mind. This system was shocking to Khaled. He watched a man buy fruit from a vendor. The transaction was silent and swift. The man simply touched a strange crystal, and the vendor nodded. Khaled realized that in Zikola, being poor did not mean having an empty wallet, it meant having an empty mind. Any mistake, no matter how small, had a cost. If you were clumsy and dropped something, you paid a fine in mental units. If you were foolish or made a bad decision, you lost intelligence. This created a society driven by pure logic and efficiency. There was no room for error, and certainly no room for stupidity. The most terrifying part of this system was its ultimate consequence. If a person's intelligence units dropped to zero, they were declared bankrupt. A bankrupt person was considered useless to society. They were a drain on Zikola's resources. On a specific day of the year, known as Zikola Day, all the bankrupt citizens were rounded up. They were then publicly executed in a grand, somber ceremony. This brutal law ensured that only the intelligent survived. It was a harsh and unforgiving form of natural selection, where the weak-minded were eliminated without mercy. The entire city lived under the constant pressure of this threat. Khaled was horrified. He came from a world where mistakes were forgiven, where compassion was valued. In Zikola, there was no compassion, only cold, hard logic. He had no idea how many intelligence units he possessed or how this strange system measured them. Every step he took was fraught with danger. A simple miscalculation could cost him dearly. He was not just fighting for his survival, he was fighting to keep his own mind intact. The adventure he had craved had turned into a nightmare where every thought and action could be a matter of life or death. He had to learn the rules of this world, and he had to learn them fast. In this frightening new world, Khaled was completely alone and vulnerable. He struggled to adapt to a life where every decision had a tangible cost to his intellect. His initial attempts to work and earn intelligence units were clumsy. He made mistakes that left him poorer in mind and closer to the terrifying fate of the bankrupt. Just as he was losing hope, he met a seal, a young doctor from Zikola. She saw that he was different and, against her better judgment, decided to help him. Asil explained the intricate rules of her world, from the cost of daily goods to the political dangers that lurked in the city. Her guidance was a lifeline for Khaled. Their friendship became Khaled's anchor in the storm. Asil was logical and intelligent, a true product of Zikola, but she also possessed a flicker of compassion that was rare in her society. She risked her own safety to teach Khaled how to navigate the city, how to work efficiently, and how to protect his precious mental units. However, their association also brought new dangers. They uncovered conspiracies and faced powerful people who would do anything to maintain Zikola's rigid order. Khaled's journey was no longer just about personal survival. It became a fight against a system that he believed was fundamentally unjust and cruel. The challenges he faced tested every aspect of his being. His intelligence was constantly on trial as he had to solve problems and outsmart his opponents. His courage was pushed to its limits as he faced life-threatening situations and powerful enemies. His patience was tested as he learned to live with the constant fear of Zikola Day. Through these trials, Khaled discovered a strength within himself that he never knew he had. The bored young man from the small village was transforming into a resourceful and brave fighter, driven by a desire to not only save himself, but also to find a way back to his own world. Khaled's adventure in Zikola land forces us to think about our own values. The story questions the true meaning of intelligence. Is a society based purely on logic and efficiency truly superior, or does it lose something essential, its humanity? The absence of compassion in Zikola highlights its importance in our own lives. Khaled's journey shows that true strength comes not just from a sharp mind but from courage, loyalty, and the willingness to fight for freedom. His experience in this mind-bending world changed him forever, teaching him that a life without compassion is as empty as a life without adventure.